Sure.
Welcome to another edition of Empty the Bench. Tom Albano here, along with Nick Fodera and Nick Morgasen. Yes, yes, you are not seeing things. Uh you are not having
A
mirage.
mirage.
Yeah, no. This is real. Sports is coming back.
It is?
Kinda.
Wait, it is? It's coming back? Really?
Kinda.
Almost.
Almost. Okay.
Almost. They're not back yet. There's still some stuff we gotta go through, but we have not one, but two leagues now that are scheduled to make their returns in July.
By the
And
way, let's not be rude. Let's say who we are, first of all. That's Tom Albano. That's Nick Federa, and I'm Nick
did I
Morgasen.
not say that?
No, you didn't say that.
I thought I said that right at the beginning.
I didn't hear you say it. Okay, maybe I'm not hearing things. It's okay, Tom. But
News is driving us crazy, folks.
Okay, let's just get right into it because we only have 20 minutes here. The NBA is officially back. That news breaking just yesterday. We've got a lot of details about the NBA's return. I know Nick Morgasen is a very happy man right now. But we do note, by the way, that MLB is back. We will get to that. Not today, but we will get to that tomorrow. But the NBA here is the breaking news. So the NBA, let's get into some details here. A return plan was announced. The NBA and NBPA formally finalized a quote comprehensive plan.
I'm always afraid. I'm always afraid when people say the word comprehensive because I'm never sure if that means, oh, we got to the exact deal we wanted, or if that was all right. We did a deal. We're better than MLB and the MLBPA because we fought and were greedy bastards over money. But somehow we got to
the NBA and NBAP. The NBA and NBPA had their own little spats. Well, certain players have had their little spats, but it will take place on July 30th. And yes, I am afraid when they say this, it's like, how can it screw up? For you, it's the word comprehensive. For me, it's just the word quote comprehensive.
Yeah, and I think it's more towards the deal that even though we don't know the finer points, I mean, we're not contract lawyers here, nor do we play them on TV. I think it trends more towards the latter than it is the former, where it's like, okay, let's just get something done here and just use some boilerplate language. We'll go over it later.
Well, the negotiations to get back to this point, and we have a lot to get into, and we have very little time to do it, which is basically the TV contracts, the health situation, the Orlando bubble. Where do we start first, Tom?
Well, let's go into how this is going to be working. Because, yes, it is still the 8 games for the 22 remaining regular season teams. It's still to be determined on what's going to happen with the 8 remaining clubs, like Nick Fodera and I's love-hate relationship, New York Knicks.
It's more hate and indifference. It's more of a mix of the two, like Neapolitan ice cream.
Just say hate, because right now the Knicks are trying to redo their front office.
You can't hate something you're laughing at, though.
No, but Leon Rose, who was a former agent in the game for all these big-time NBA players.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Very fair enough. But basically, it's going to be 8 games for the 22 teams. They're still trying to get stuff done for the 8 remaining clubs. Here's something, because you mentioned the TV thing. Here's a quote. The NBA and its broadcast and technology partners are collaborating to enhance game telecasts and bring fans an immersive, interactive viewing experience.
Yeah.
And what that means in non-corporate speak is we're going to do the experiment with some stuff to make sure you aren't distracted by the fact that there are no fans in the stands.
Yeah, basically when they talk about comprehensive watching experience, that's a fancy way of saying we're back and we want all our media partners back, which is a whole nother issue that they're dealing with because ESPN had talked about doing their games from the Bristol studios in Connecticut. ABC, the same thing, which is part of Disney. That's another issue. And so on. TNT is probably going to do it from their Atlanta studios. So it's just a fancy way of saying we found a way to get our media partners back in the game.
Now, whether that works remains to be seen, of course.
Right, pretty much. So let's go over some of the details as to, how else they're going to be, well, about the games themselves. I mean, July 30th, again, is going to be the reopening night, and it's going to feature a couple of interesting games on TNT. You're going to have the Utah Jazz taking on the New Orleans Pelicans, and you're going to have the Battle of the LA, the Los Angeles Clippers and the Los Angeles Lakers.
See, I'm not surprised by this whole thing. I mean, we all know why the Pelicans are on TV. It's because Zion
Williamson.
Because everyone wants to see Zion on the reopening of this whole thing, especially. And I think you said those games that's a TNT doubleheader. So basically, you have Zion, and also don't forget you have Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert, the guy who started this whole mess with the COVID-19 virus and touching the media microphones, which led to the whole situation. But then you have the Battle of LA. Now, I'm still questioning the fact whether LeBron is going to be happy bunking with Lance Stevenson and now possibly J.R. Smith, who might be in with the Lakers organization. But that's neither here nor there at this point.
J.R. Smith is going to forget curfew.
Yeah, he'll forget what time the curfew is. They're gonna find him propped up against a vending machine. What?
That joke's never gonna get old, is it? I mean,
you're just gonna have LeBron.
Hey, LeBron, give me the ball. Give me the ball.
And then the next day we're gonna have I believe 5 games. Well, we're gonna have Grizzlies versus the Blazers, the Celtics versus the Bucks, the Rockets against the Mavericks. I may have screwed up on this. There are 2 other games on the next day, correct?
Yeah. I think I put the games down for scheduling's sake, but basically a lot of the games you're saying are big markets. So Celtics Bucks, that's a big one. Rockets Mavs, that's a Texas matchup. They probably did that for the purposes of traveling so that you don't have to travel outside.
Orlando Magic versus Brooklyn Nets, and Phoenix Suns, Washington Wizards are the other 2.
Now, the issue, and I'm actually glad you brought the Mavericks and the Rockets up, because right now we're having an issue in Texas with the amount of COVID cases being up to a record amount. I think I read it was 6,000 COVID cases over the last couple of days.
Well, that's exactly where I was going to go with this, because we have a bunch of quotes from Adam Silver to go over. But when we're talking about all these issues, whether it is the Orlando bubble itself, how it's going to be worked around, the law enforcement officers are going to be used, and everything, you run into one big issue, and that is Florida, as you were saying, just like Texas, is going through a spike after they were reopened.
Close to 9,000 cases in the last.
It's over 9,000 now.
It's over 9,000 now?
It's over
cases,
yeah.
I thought.
Yes, it's over 9,000 new cases in the last 24 to 48 hours.
And I don't know, and we put up some polls, and actually thank you to everybody who's been responding to our polls, because we've been getting a lot of feedback on polls we've been putting up, and it's been interesting. I think I put up a poll, I don't remember how many days ago, about are you concerned with the NBA coming back due to the amount of cases in Florida? And I think the percentages were higher saying yes, that people were concerned that the NBA are coming back. I don't know how you can do this. And I read some quotes the other day that, oh, well, we're going to put security and we're going to put the National Guard around this bubble so people can't escape. And then the other one that confused me, Tom, was the quarantine for the family members.
It's like, no matter how much, I give them credit that they're trying, but is it exactly going to work? I mean, remember, you're giving the NBA players all this free access to, all the Disney parks. You're giving them the Disney chefs. So it's like when you're giving them all these amenities, I don't know if exactly that's going to work to, it's
mitigate any kind of concerns about their health.
You can't have your cake and eat it too, kind of situation.
Yeah, no. I mean, first of all, context is necessary. We probably should explain that the family members of the players need to quarantine with them for 14 days, I think, right?
Well, it originally started as once they come in, I think this was after the first round, once they get through all the seeding games, they have to quarantine for 3 days, then they have to go outside and quarantine for 4 days, and then come back in and quarantine for another 3. So there's a lot of mess.
Try to keep track of that when you're stressed about everything else. look, it's obvious here that Adam Silver believes that he can hermetically seal this this basketball complex that he's set up. But I mean, it's obvious that over the past couple of weeks, the evidence has proven that you cannot do that, especially in a state where cases are spiking and spiking crazily. What
Nick,
are you going to do? What are you going to do if a player gets sick,
Nick,
or if a bunch of players get sick?
I'm
What
going
are
to
you
steal.
going to do then? You're going to stop?
I'm going to steal a quote from you, actually, Nick. This is purgatory. This is purgatory for the NBA because they're trying to get everybody into one large, hermetically sealed bubble to keep everybody from getting the virus. We've already seen, and I don't know if it's on our list, Tom, but there's quite a few players that have already tested positive for the COVID-19 virus. I think there was a couple of Pacers players. There was a couple of Kings players. And
do we know if they're already down in Orlando?
No, they're not. They're not.
Oh, they're not.
They're not. Well, I'm curious because I want to know, like, is the NBA going to have like a pool? Like, to give MLB this credit, which we'll talk about tomorrow, there's going to be a pool of players like in Nashville. They're going to take all their minor leaguers and they're going to basically have a 60-man taxi squad. Like, what is the NBA going to do in a case of either an injury or, heaven forbid, a positive COVID case? Because there are going to be positive COVID cases. As
they have to quarantine. There's actually, and I don't know if you wrote it down.
Yes, yeah, no, I get that. Okay. But are they going to be allowed to, hey, we're down a couple of guys because of COVID cases. You two aren't playing NBA basketball. How would you like a contract for this short season?
I think that they're going to have player pools, like how MLB has the rumor for Nashville, where they're going to have the player pools.
That's exactly what I was saying.
But I think the issue, and I think some of these quotes actually are good.
Yeah, I have a bunch of quotes from Adam Silver on the conference call yesterday.
So read the first couple because I find them interesting here.
Okay. Here's a couple of quotes Adam Silver had on the rising number of COVID cases in Florida. The level of concern has increased, not just because of the increased levels of corona cases in Florida, but throughout the country. We know that COVID-19 will be with us for the foreseeable future, and we are left no choice but to learn to live with the virus. No options are risk-free right now. My ultimate conclusion is that we can't outrun the virus, and this is what we're going to be living with for the foreseeable future, which is why we designed the campus the way we did. And so it's a closed network, and while it's not impermeable, we are in essence protected from cases around us. At least that's the model. So for those reasons, we're still very comfortable being in Orlando. I say the key word here is at least that's the model. I don't know if that model is going to hold up.
I don't buy that, right?
I don't.
Nobody buys it. I mean, this is all, again, I hate to do this again, but wishful thinking.
I mean, I kind of agree that at the rate we're going with COVID in this country, it's just something that we will have to deal with. But the issue is...
the COVID is the new flu, in a sense.
We're going to have to deal with this because people don't seem to realize that they need to wear masks, but that's neither here nor there.
I was gonna say, I think the fault of that is on people not taking precautions.
Yeah, but
exactly.
But Adam Silver needs to wake up to the fact that he keeps saying that we're trying to run from the virus and that we're going to deal with the COVID cases and there's just going to be positive cases and we're going to have to deal with this for the foreseeable future. Hey, Adam, wake up. If there's too many COVID cases in Florida, maybe you shouldn't restart your NBA season.
You've built a 20-story tall Jenga tower. One brick.
I was going to say, maybe you can restart your season, but maybe you need to rethink, maybe we shouldn't do this in Florida.
Well, yeah, with the 9,000 positive cases. Now, are you going to have essentially what MLB, and which we're going to talk about tomorrow, a COVID disabled list? Like, are you going to have that for the NBA? Where now I know NBA has separate housing that they're putting into place for people who get the COVID case, but I'm concerned. I'm confused. I don't know how the NBA can restart at this point, especially in Florida with all the cases going on.
Imagine, by the way, boys, sorry to go on a little tangent, but imagine how much the UFC is going, how much they were able to get Nevada on board with their events at that UFC Apex. If they were stuck in Florida, they'd be they'd be just as screwed as these guys. And we have more to talk about with Florida as it relates to tomorrow with the MLB when it comes to the Florida teams, the teams in Texas, teams in California.
But even cases in Nevada are rising too, aren't they?
I mean, the only place that's really not rising at this point, and ironically, because we're here, it's New York.
It's New York, and it's most of the Northeast corridor.
So
the ones who basically went into quarantine for the longest time.
But what are some of these other quotes you have here, though? Because I see some of the other ones.
Yeah.
Let's not be whistling past the graveyard as far as it goes with our state, because things can change.
Right. I think once we fully reopen, there will be a rise in cases again. But it's just if everyone wears masks and takes the precautions that are necessary, we can still fight this.
Well, that would mean you'd have to make sure everyone actually follows the rules. That's
my one concern. That's my concern.
Because you're going to get guys who say, F this mask, I'm not wearing it. But quickly get to these quotes because we're running out of time here.
Yeah. We haven't worked through every scenario, but the notion would be that if we had a single player test positive, frankly, whether that player was an all-star or a journeyman, that player would go into quarantine. We would then be tracking any players or other personnel that the player had been in contact with and even potentially supplement the daily testing to just to ensure that others have not been contaminated, but then we would continue. That team would be down a man, and we would treat that positive test as we would an injury during the season. And so we would not delay the continuation of the playoffs. But again, are you going to let that team? Because it sounds like when he says that quote, it's like, nope, that's it. You're down a man.
Oh, wait a minute. Okay, I'm going to play a devil's advocate scenario. Excuse me. I can't speak right now. What if it's LeBron James that goes down? What if it's Giannis that goes down?
Would we find out if it was that? Well,
yes,
you wouldn't have to.
You wouldn't know. You would know. You would notice if they weren't around.
Well, no, you're going to have people calling the bat phone that Adam Silver set up.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't understand the joke, that there's pretty much a tattletale phone Adam Silver is going to be setting up for players.
Well, I think it's like Survivor, where what's his name, Probes, that hosts Survivor. Yeah. He's not on the island technically. He's in like a hotel somewhere. So it looks like he's on the island, but he really isn't. I think Adam Silver is like outside the bubble somewhere, like in his mansion somewhere that he can afford, like Roger Goodell's in his basement. And he's watching from the outside. Just call me if you need me. I'm here.
All right. And then the other quote here from Adam Silver. If we were to have significant spread of coronavirus through our community, that ultimately might lead us to stopping. But we're working closely with the Players Association, with Disney, and with public health officials in Florida as to what the line should be. And it hasn't been precisely designed. I think we want to get down on the ground and start to see how our testing's working and how the protocols are working, and then we'll make decisions as we go.
Oh, yeah, because that makes total sense. Like I was saying before, that we're going to use law enforcement, we're going to use the National Guard, because we're going to treat these guys like little kids in a summer camp.
It's almost like what Adam Silver's saying is code for, well, that's a future me problem, not a present Adam problem.
Basically, and it doesn't matter how many law enforcement and National Guard people you put in there. It doesn't matter how limited the access you give the players and their families to the parks are. You're fighting against something that even to this day, we still don't understand. We still are struggling to figure out.
Right. And just quickly, because I want to get to the national schedule, because we were talking about it. So the way this is going to work, maximum 7 games per day, tip-offs between noon and 9 p.m. Eastern, 3 total courts, 2 for national television purposes, 1 for, I guess, teams that are not good enough. 52 of those 88 games are on TNT.
ESPN, 17
ABC, NBA TV, which is all the normal platforms. And as many as 7 games a day, but mostly 6 per day on 3 courts. Games will be played at 3 arenas at the Disney complex. Each team has 1 back-to-back in the seeding games process. And the weirdest thing of all that I saw, the 88 seeding games will count towards the regular season statistics.
But if they're going for bonuses, those bonuses are pretty much done.
As of March 11th, they were done.
Yeah. I don't get it.
Folks, I don't get it. We don't know what they're doing, and they don't know what they're doing. That's what we can say to sum it up.
Okay, very quickly, guys. Final word. Last sentence. Morgasen.
I'm concerned, and I don't know if they're going to be able to get this off the ground.
Like I just said, we don't know what they're doing, and they don't know what they're doing.
And like you said, Nick, this sounds like, oh, it's a future me problem, not a current me. All right. Thanks again for tuning in, guys. Tomorrow, time to be determined, we'll be having a special MLB broadcast talking about the MLB return to play. But until then, follow us on Twitter at ETB Sports. Go like us on Facebook. You can find us also at ETB Sports, or just search Empty the Bench and go to Empty the Bench Sports, emptythebenchsportspod.weebly.com for all our past episodes, all our past live streams, all the interviews we've done, and a lot more. So for Nick Morgasen and Nick Fodera, I'm Tom Albano, and we'll see you. Well, we'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll see you tomorrow.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.